We're enlisting Anoda for Operation Mincemeat and taking Benedetta to the Lost City. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Becks Perfect, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom. Groovy.
Welcome to Off Screen. We are taking you on a ride which you might be mistaken for is something from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, but it's not. It's 4 movies to start off the show that take homage or give homage to movies from those kind of yesteryears. And we're going to have a lot of fun talking you through it. So welcome to Off Screen. We're going to kickstart with Onoda, 10,000 Nights in the Jungle. This is something that I think feels like it should have been set back in the 70s, as in it should have been made back in the 70s. It has that feel to it. It's almost an epic 3-hour-long movie, and it is something quite incredible if you're really in the mood for it, isn't it, Van?
Absolutely. You say it spans decades, so the larger chunk of the movie I think does take place in the 70s. So it's loosely, it's fiction based on a true story. So this is written and directed by Arthur Harari. It's is it in Japanese? I think it is in Japanese, isn't it? But it's a massive international co-production as well. So it has no fixed cultural identity in that sense. Although the language spoke is primarily Japanese. It's between a Japanese platoon who are dispatched to a remote Philippine island in World War II. They are then told that World War II has ended, come home, and certain among them start to believe, no, we don't believe this. This sounds like misinformation. It's our duty to fight until we are reliably informed. Honor dictates this is the code. And this then reaches an almost Castaway level extreme. Remember the first time you saw Castaway, when it jumps ahead in time? You're like, oh my God, they're really seeing this out. Oh God, this movie very much the similar thing of, oh my God, they're really seeing this out, except it spans decades. So this goes through to the 70s for the later portion of this movie. And as you say from It's So Martian, there's an element of almost deliverance to certain scenes in this. There's one sequence in particular that's very deliverance. There's elements of The Deer Hunter. There's First Blood in there. There's Apocalypse Now. This is very rooted in 70s cinemas. That new wave exploration of the Vietnam era. Very much what's going on in here, but casting its eye back towards subjects from World War II whose more dated moral code has allowed them to push forward into the Vietnam era without explicitly doing the Vietnam thing. It's a fascinating film.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you. The Deer Hunter, Apocalypse Now, it really does give you those kind of feels and vibes. It almost feels like it's shot in the same, it's shot on film in the same way. There's just, something very vintage about this particular movie. And I mean, I don't know about you, Van, but it is a long run time. So I don't know how you felt about watching it for almost 3 hours. Did it hold your attention?
It did, and it did because it's quite episodic. It is quite episodic in the way it's done. There's a lot of uses of flashbacks. We have different actors playing Onoda at different times. I want to single out Yu Endo and Kanji Suda. So Kanji is I think he's the older of the two, and the way it's played is it's wonderful. It's an incredibly nuanced performance, twofold. They are different performances, but they're played so perfectly in tandem, and the writing is such that to watch this man's outlook and his rigid adherence to this moral code, and how it mutates and how it changes but stays the same at the same time through different decades. It's fascinating to watch through the different performances, but the way it's structured, it held me. It really did. And then the way to have it just laid out in these almost non-linear at times, episodic little bits. Great. I thought this was absolutely wonderful. I wasn't expecting anything of it, to be really honest. And the runtime I found incredibly daunting, but I thought we need a 4th movie this week. Come on, I'm taking the bullet. 2 hours, 53 minutes. And it whizzed by. I really enjoyed it. I think the performances are incredible, but I think the film itself is fascinating enough. And I think as a subtitled ride as well, it's a hell of a one. I'm shocked that we didn't hear about this more in mainstream Western awards contention, but these are the ones that slip through.
Absolutely. So this is available in cinemas from today. It is rated 15, but again, if you want to kind of see something which, you know, Van obviously thinks is very, very highly regarded, even at the runtime, then definitely check out Onoda, 10,000 Nights in the Jungle.
I would argue nobody under 15 would have the patience to watch this anyway.
No, absolutely not. Right, let's move on to something that feels positively vintage. Again, in cinemas from today, and this time rated 12A. This is Operation Mincemeat. And Van, I can see you are wound up, ready to go on this one.
I am. Right, first of all, this is the worst possible title for a movie. I sat and watched the trailer for this before a screening, one of the Cineworld limited screenings, and the trailer's really good. And then you get to it's like a really great wartime thriller, and then it gets to the cast list, and it's reeling off the names, and it's Matthew McFadden, Colin Firth, Johnny Flynn, and then you get to the title, and the music swells, and it's Operation Mincemeat, and you're thinking, wow, that just drops the tonal ball, doesn't it? Anyway, so it's a really compelling World War II thriller based on the classified mission to basically...
No!
Sorry?
I thought you meant it would be something like a comedy. I was thinking this would be like Phantom of the Open style because of that title.
Yeah.
Not a thriller.
You've proven my point. That's exactly it. You get... Yeah. Right?
That's ridiculous.
I know, right?
I'm actually really disappointed. I was like, I'm ready for a comedy. Let's do it. And then you went thriller.
I'm just saying,
No.
Tinker Tailor would not have the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy would not quite have the same effect were it titled Mission Ball Break or something like that. It just wouldn't work, would it? Anyway, beside the point. Okay, beside the point. So. The classified mission, right? This is a hell of a story as well. So Matthew McFadden, you know, like riding high on Succession right now, okay, and Colin Firth, they are the military bods put in charge of a mission. Which has as a core member of its team, Johnny Flynn as Ian Fleming. Okay, remember, true story. And their mission is to distract the Nazis so that we can land on the beach and win the war. They have to basically divert all the military forces so that the great beach landing can finally take place. And this, I'm going to play the clip for you. And remember, this movie is called Operation Mincemeat.
What if the autopsy reveals he didn't die of drowning? Or if the briefcase is returned to us without the Germans seeing its contents?
Charles, why on earth do you keep poking holes in our plan?
I'm preemptively poking. Success depends on guiding the papers into Hitler's hands.
The nightmare marching this way is only too real.
And the Spanish won't let the Germans anywhere near our briefcase. We are in the dark.
If the enemy is waiting for us on those beaches, history herself will avert her eyes from the slaughter.
I may vomit.
I may vomit with you.
So, again, right, looking at all those actors, the reason why you feel deceived with this is that it's because all of them can do comedy, and they have done British comedy. So you're kind of completely leading us down the garden path with this, and then we watch it, and you just got to be aware that this is not a comedy.
I know, right? It's the most bizarre thing. I mean, obviously the actual operation was called Operation Mincemeat is why they've done it, but it's just like, it really sets the wrong tone. It's unfortunate because the movie's actually pretty good. As you can hear from the movie lives up to that clip. Like, it's a throwaway. You and I watch 2 or 3 of these kind of things a year, usually with lesser tier casts. But, really solid, robust, well put together, British made wartime thriller based on a true story. I mean, the cast who are in this do star in a fair share of them. You know what I mean? Like, Colin Firth does not lack for these on his filmography. Exactly. But it works. And there is a light-hearted tone here and there. There is a cheekiness that you do get from the casting. Johnny Flynn as Ian Fleming is just inspired, by the way. And oh my God, whoever thought of that? I've got a dream picture, a movie, and he's now in that. But which funnily enough involves Ian Fleming. But it's a fascinating story, entertainingly delivered, well put together, well performed, well acted. It's nothing genre defining, nothing game changing, but as a tight and tidy, British made wartime thriller, you get what you're paying for with this. Like, an older audience are going to lap this up because it absolutely plays to that crowd. It knows the notes to hit. The grandparents are going to love it. But I think and it's not quite, Band of Brothers level gritty or anything like that. It's not quite Tinker Tailor level highbrow, but it is solid mid-tier film 4.
Yeah, fair enough. Welcome back to Off Screen. And now in our next block of big movies you can see on the big screen, we've got something very, very sexy for you. In fact, we've got two things that are really, really sexy for you, but not how you would expect. We're going to kickstart this with something that is rated 18 for very good reason, and it's in cinemas from today, and it is all about sexy lesbian nuns in the 17th century. Now, yes, you will know what you're getting with this one. This is no Operation Mincemeat. This is Benedetta. And again, it's something that I feel you would have watched as like some B movie from the 70s, brought up to date by none other than Paul Verhoeven.
I mean, I love there's a short list of things I love in life. I love movies. I love my fiance. I love my car. I love you, Bex. I also love the cinema of Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven is my god of film. He just is. And the man who brought us RoboCop, Starship Troopers, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, and Showgirls has turned his attention to an almost Suspiria-inspired 17th century Italian supernatural nun thriller setting is just amazing to me. So this stars Virginia Fira, who alongside Daphne Patachia and Charlotte Rampling in the story of Benedetta, who is sort of a young, seen as a sort of young religious prodigy. She is brought into a convent, a prestigious convent with, high on prestige, with high standing within the church, and in the town of I think it's Passia it's called. And
yes.
Years go by. She ages from being little girl to being Virginia Fira, and the stunning Virginia Fira, by the way, and who I think was in Elle. I think she played a supporting role in Elle, Paul Verhoeven's previous one a few years ago. And he's obviously been bumped up to lead here. Good. Keep the talent around, Paul. You know how to pick them. Nothing ever came of the Starship Troopers lot, but other than that, anyway. So gets to later years. Benedetta is now an adult young woman in her sort of prime, and the convent takes in young woman of similar age, played by Daphne Patachia, who's sort of more of an urchin. And Benedetta's richer parents basically take her in as an act of charity for their daughter, only for an illicit romance to begin to emerge between the pair, as it also emerges that moments of, let's just say, certain physical pleasure and delight seem to inspire religious, almost supernatural and horror-infused visions within Benedetta herself, visions that may be bringing about the apocalypse. Remember, this is a Paul Verhoeven movie, so if you think any of this is going to be done subtly or with any level of tact, look up the work of Paul Verhoeven. Bex, how did you find Benedetta?
Okay, so I literally felt, like I said before, that this should be some B movie from the 70s. I actually really enjoyed it, and I thought it was something that kind of shouldn't have made me laugh, but did. Like, I did think it was very compelling. I thought it was really well acted. I thought that Charlotte Gainsbourg, who's in there, is like, she's like the older head nun.
Rampling. The other art house Charlotte. Yep. Charlotte
Rampling, yes. And the crescendo that is the ending, I absolutely loved, because it's something like Witchfinder General gone mental, and I absolutely adored that ending. And there are moments where you kind of think a few things to yourself. You kind of go, where in the world, at what time, was there ever a convent with such sexy nuns? Firstly, never going to happen. And then secondly, I love, and this isn't a spoiler alert or anything, but with the ending, there is a moment where it comes from great drama to the two female leads just ending up stark naked in a barn, just sleeping, and of course they just have to be fully naked, and it's just you're right, there's no subtleness about it. It's hilarious.
Well, I mean, in the press this week, whilst promoting this, Verhoeven has, he's been doing interview pieces this week, and he has brought up the lack of sex in movies. He is specifically going and doing, an erotic thriller again next, which, you got to remember, this guy gave us Basic Instinct. This guy did Showgirls. He has a very specific, he's a very European director, he knows his limitations on sex, and he's very happy to flaunt them. And more power to him. He is inspired by more artistic European cinema anyway, and that's always been prevalent in his movies. You look at something like RoboCop, which is very heavily inspired by German cinematic aesthetic, and even things like the fascistic imagery that he relies on, things like Starship Troopers. There's a reason these films fascinating, because he gives him the opportunity to explore these things from that specific cultural advantage, and it's why his work is always so resonant, because he picks topics that work with the kind of cinema background that he himself forms as a bedrock. And something like this, with its 70s, almost that black Narcissus. Let's be really honest about this. This is to Black Narcissus what Showgirls is to Black Swan. But
yes, that is a good analogy. Yeah, that is a good analogy of it. Yeah. And and throw in that B-movie element for good measure, because I think you need to do that to kind of keep yourself sane throughout this. Otherwise, you'll be going, what the hell am I watching? But yeah, really, really good movie. Not what you'd expect, but it is totally sexy lesbian nuns, 17th century. Yeah. Absolutely bonkers. Throwing in a plague there for good measure as well. So that was Benedetta. Now we move on to probably the big movie of the week, and some big names. Again, bringing us a bit of that nostalgia, a big 90s star, a big 2000s star in Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock as well. And not to mention that, but there is a little appearance of a somewhat subtle Brad Pitt as well. This is The Lost City, which is in cinemas from today as well, rated 12A.
Yeah, this one is just a hell of a ride. To be honest with you, by the point we're reviewing this, more or less everyone on the planet will have seen it in preview screenings, because they were just showing this left, right, and centre for about 2 months. It's like the day is finally here. So this is very much a throwback to the 80s style romantic adventure, for instance, of Romancing the Stone. Using Bullock and Tatum as the sort of de facto lead. So with Bullock, you get the sort of quintessential 90s rom-com lead, and in Tatum, you get something of a late 2000s one. And so there is cross-generational appeal. You've also got, as a villain, Daniel Radcliffe, who's embracing that madcap adult energy that he seems to have found. In movies like Guns Akimbo and what's the one with the Swiss Army Man, the one with the dead body? I've literally got a selfie of myself with the dead body from that movie. The dead
still looks like a child wizard though.
Still does. But do you know what? He's holding up better than the franchise is. Let's put it that way.
Fair.
And in there, you've got a great star cameo from Brad Pitt, which should have been held from the marketing because it's fantastic. Right. So the idea is she's the ultimate romantic adventure author. Trash novels. He's the cover star. He's the himbo cover model. Who's found something of a second tier life on the convention scenes, a sort of failed actor, typecast as in this role because of his looks. She gets abducted by a superfan nutjob billionaire played by Daniel Radcliffe, because he thinks that her romantic adventure novel The Lost City actually contains actual clues, and he basically takes her along to find the treasure, and it's up to the himbo cover model to save the day.
Miss Sage, I enjoyed your book about the Lost City, and I believe you're the one who can help me find its treasure.
I have to respectfully decline.
I'm afraid I must insist.
Unchain me!
That's your seatbelt.
Oh, no.
Loretta Sage is missing.
I'm gonna rescue her. I just want her to think of me as more than a cover model.
Let's start living dangerously.
Alan, what are you doing here?
We're here to save you. I'm certified CPR, I'm certified CrossFit. I have snacks.
After them!
So I have to say, this is an example of a film where I stumbled across the trailer. I was captivated by it. I want to go and see it. You don't even have to sell this to me. I'm sold. It just looks great.
You know, this is what we want. You know what I mean? This is the movie everyone says they want, and it's here. And it seems to be doing relatively well, to be fair, which is a good sign. It opened in the US a few weeks ago and does seem to be actually making decent bang. So what you've got here is star names playing to their brand. It's a combination we haven't had before in a well-worn formula, dusted off. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's lean on the things that work for us. That Brad Pitt cameo, for instance, is entirely just let's let Brad Pitt turn up, be Brad Pitt for 5 minutes, show how charming Brad Pitt is, and that's it. And you've got that with Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock. This is Sandra Bullock in that, that sort of crotchety mode. She has two modes, where she's the agent of chaos or she's the straight man. This is kind of more her as the straight man type. She's the sort of stuck up, I think she's widowed, the widowed romantic lead, and he's the sort of himbo who's, she deems as being below her kind of a thing, and it's all about him sort of spite. And you know what I mean? You know the formula. Yeah. And it works because we know that both these actors are brilliant at doing that. The film's good fun. The gags all land. There's a sequence involving leeches that is going to be memed for the rest of eternity. And if you haven't seen it in the trailers yet, brace yourself. There's going to be there's a lot of Channing Tatum in your life coming soon. Great time. I think it's a 2 thumbs up, 4-star ride. Great time. Go see it. Stock up on the popcorn. Pay for the nachos, get the big screen, get the comfy seats in the big screen, and strap in for 105, I think it's maybe 110 minutes. Have a good time.
Sold.
And now it's time for a segment we like to call Off-Screen Pays the Bills. Hey, Bex.
Hey, Van, what's going on?
Ain't nothing going on but the rent. You know how it is.
We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, The New Reality, comprised of Sean and Cody, a paranormal duo in Southern California whose goal is to investigate the unknown and to gather evidence to prove or disprove supernatural or paranormal activity. You can catch their exploits in full on YouTube by searching for The New Reality Paranormal or by following the link in our show notes this week, and see the pair take on any number of terrifying locales like the Brackenfern Manor, the Union Hotel, and the Dake House. So if you've had your fill of listening to us talk about fictional Ghostbusters, head over to YouTube for some of the real kind by searching for The New Reality Paranormal or by following the link in our show notes. Seeing is believing.
Welcome back to Off Screen. Now, as ever, we've taken you on the ride of the big screen, and now we're on to the small screen, your 7-day guide to all the top movies on your telly box. And we're kicking off with what is showing today, which is on Film 4, 11:05 p.m. It might not be Ice, but it definitely is Cube. What is this one, man?
Have you never seen Cube? Have you never had the pleasure?
I've never seen Cube.
Cube, in a strange way, it's kind of like a precursor to the Saw series, but like as a sci-fi concept. A group of strangers wake up in individual cubes, and you make their way together and learn that the cubes are actually death traps, and you have to make your way from one cube into the next to eventually find your way out. And it's written and directed, I think, by Vincenzo Natali, who has been a fascinating genre director over the years since. This is from all the way back in 97. There's cast members in there that you'd recognize from TV shows in the years, like mainstream TV shows in the years since. Like there's cast members who've gone on to star in Stargate shows like David Hewlett, and I think one of the cast members from Nikita is in there, and there's Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So I think it's largely Canadian cast, but it's a hell of a movie. There's a sequel that's not quite as good, Cube 2 Hypercube. There's a prequel, Cube Zero, which was just nonsense, and I believe now there's a Japanese language remake, which is just about to be released as well. But for my money, you will never top Vincenzo Natali's 97 original, which is like a nice, tight and tidy 90-minuter as well. Whack on adverts for a sort of 2-hour run. 11:10 tonight on Film 4, so that's Cube. Check that one out. If you've never seen or heard of it, it's a good one, especially if you like the Saw series as well. This is more of a sci-fi spin, but it's still got the gore and the horror. A bit more Clive Barker than Saw.
Fair. Okay, moving swiftly on to that, we're going to take you to something not so horror-driven or scary in any way. It's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, 4:20 p.m. on Film 4, which is out on Saturday. Now, again, I think Tom Holland is one of the strongest Spider-Man that we've really ever had out of the trio. of recent days. And I know there was news out that Sam Raimi might want to revisit with Tobey Maguire doing another Spider-Man, an OAP Spider-Man. I'd be interested to see that. Spider-Man into Spider-Verse. I enjoyed this, I think.
Well, this is,
and again...
this is the Oscar-winning Spider-Man, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think this is the animated one, isn't it? This is
the animated one in which we're introduced to, for the first time, in feature film format, Miles Morales' Spider-Man, who is, I believe, he's Hispanic African American, I believe. And he basically takes the place of Peter Parker in this universe after Peter Parker dies, effectively, and he's then tasked with joining a team of all the other Spider-Men from all the different pockets of the multiverse who are all deposited into his when the Kingpin has one of his death trap experiments run awry. But I've got a clip for you of Jake Johnston's older Peter B. Parker, the schlubby middle-aged one with the beer belly, with the dad bod, teaching Miles how to web sling.
Aim with your hips! Look where you want it to hit! Double tap to release and whip it out again. Okay. Whip and release. And whip, release. Whip and release. You're an actor. Whip, release. Feel the rhythm? Good, Miles. I gotta say, you're amazing, man. We're a little team. Me as the teacher who could still do it. You as the student who can do it, just not as good. I'm proud of us. Is there something you want to say to me?
It's amazing, isn't it, when you kind of see this concept of the multiverse in animation form and then they bring it to life in live action with No Way Home. I think it was quite a clever move from Marvel to kind of do it that way, particularly off the back of this doing so well across award season as well. So that is available for you 4:20 p.m. on Film 4 on Saturday. Sunday. Who doesn't want to spend Easter Sunday without watching an absolute classic of a movie? It's on ITV2. 3:25 p.m. You will not get through this without crying. It is your friendly alien that's come down to visit you. Of course, it's E.T., the extraterrestrial. Oh my goodness, I could watch this every year if I had the time, and thought to do it, because it's timeless.
Have you seen the documentary In Search of Tomorrow? It came out recently. It's like a 5-hour long documentary about 80s science fiction cinema, and it basically it goes through it because it's attached to Oliver Harper, who's a YouTube personality that I'm quite a big fan of, and he does like film retrospectives on YouTube, and so I got into it through that. And they played a couple of clips when they were talking about ET, and the clips alone had me reduced to blubbery. I was actively weeping at literally a 45-second clip of the end of the third act of E.T. And this just tugs on your heartstrings. This is one of the most integral cornerstone emotional components of, I think, someone in their late 30s. Anyone in their in their late 30s, early 40s. I think this is one of their... It's like My Girl. It's just one of those core emotional components, or Batteries Not Included, or Short Circuit. There are just so... like The Goonies. It's just one of those core cinematic components that we all sort of have. And E.T., I think, is where we learn to cry. We learn to cry when we're sad as kids, I think, like, properly.
But also, like, if you are as of our certain vintage, I would suggest that you also YouTube the audition videos for this.
Oh, God, I know.
Because... it's so... The skills on all the child actors, we're not just talking about Drew Barrymore, is just amazing. So, look, guys, there's so many reasons why you need to watch E.T. the Extraterrestrial. If you haven't visited it in the last decade, what are you doing? Spend your Easter Sunday not visiting the family, watching this on ITV2 instead. Right, let's move on to Monday, 9 p.m, Horror Channel. Are we talking about the classic in this, The Thing?
Yeah, John,
is this like
John
is it 19...
Funnily enough, I think it's the same
Thing.
year. I think it's the same year as E.T., actually, funnily enough, but very, very different kind of aliens. This is John Carpenter's remake of The Thing from The Thing from Another World, starring Kurt Russell, starring Keith David. Oh my God, what a cast this had! Wilfred Brimley, man, Wilfred Brimley. It's it's the crew in the Arctic. One of them is an alien. Man is the warmest place to hide. A parasitic alien. Groundbreaking visual effects. All-time badass performance from Sir Kurt Russell. I don't care that he's not knighted. That man is a sir to me. And just one of the best movies ever made. Full stop, period, underline, bold, please. Right. Let's move on to, I think you'll agree, one of the more charming rom-coms of the late 1990s.
Yes.
This hailing from the year 1997. It's showing at 6:40 p.m. on Film 4 on Tuesday. The Dame Julia Roberts in My Best Friend's Wedding. Rebecca, we've got a clip for this.
Yes.
Tell us about My Best Friend's Wedding, please.
Well, it's Julia Roberts. It's Cameron Diaz, isn't it?
It is.
Who's the lead guy in it? Is it Dermot?
Dermot Mulroney, but you'll also remember Rupert
Mulroney.
Everett as the gay best friend in this, because I think this was Rupert Everett's big breakout as well.
Yeah, and I always remember in interviews about this film, Cameron Diaz going, I really cannot sing. And there's quite a famous scene in this where she's like having to sing and she's pretending. It's very, very genuine. And I'm pretty sure she was, a little bit sort of nervous having to film this anyway. But yeah, it's your ultimate, it is what it is. It's your best friend is there to support you on your wedding day, but actually she's in love with the groom and vice versa. And it just works out in 90s classic fashion.
Yeah, not helped by the fact that Cameron Diaz's character, as our clip will immensely cue here, is actually just an annoyingly nice person.
So sweet of you to want to be protective, but nothing ever did give me one moment's pause about this marriage.
You become hysterical in small confinement.
Except one. You'll always be there in his mind, this perfect creature that he loved for all those years.
Well, perfection can get wearing after a while.
I'm not kidding. I had to face up to all of my competitive drives, and believe me, I've got them.
No.
And after all, what am I going to be jealous of you for the rest of my life? Our paths will keep on crossing.
Of course.
He'll always talk about you.
It's only natural.
And the answer was so simple.
I was going to predict that.
You win.
I've missed a step.
He's got you on a pedestal. And me in his arms.
Sounds like a good place to be. My Best Friend's Wedding, 6:40 p.m, Film 4 on Tuesday. On 4/7 then, 9 p.m. for Wednesday. We'll breeze through this real quick. Captain Marvel, which I haven't seen in a year or two, actually. I could revisit Captain Marvel. Well, it's the origin story for Captain Marvel, but it's also sort of their 90s period piece as well. So loads of references like Nine Inch Nails, Mallrats, No Doubt on the soundtrack, a bit of Courtney Love in there. It's a good time. Brie Larson's good fun. I liked Lashana Lynch as, I can't remember which Rambo she is. She Monica or Maria Rambo? I think she's Maria Rambo. The older Rambo, because we're now decades in the future and her daughter is going to be a character again soon. But rounding off the week, one of my all-time go-to good time thrillers starring the great Gene Hackman and the equally great Denzel. Crimson Tide is on 5-star, 10 p.m. on Thursday. It's the captain and the first officer during a state of potential nuclear war, and they're unable to agree when communications are cut off whether or not they should launch the bomb.
All I'm saying, Captain, is that we have backup. Now it's our duty not to launch until we can confirm.
You're presuming that we have other submarines out there ready to launch. But as captain, I must assume that our submarines could have been taken out by other Akulas. We can play these games all night, Mr. Hunter, but I don't have the luxury of your presumptions.
Sir.
Mr. Hunter, we have rules that are not open to interpretation, personal intuition, gut feelings, hairs on the back of your neck, little devils or angels sitting on your shoulders.
Captain.
So we're all very well aware of what our orders are and what those orders mean. They come down from our commander-in-chief. They contain no ambiguity.
Captain.
Mr. Hunter, I've made a decision. I'm captain of this boat. Now shut the up!
Oh, we miss you, Gene.
Oh, mutiny.
James
That's all I'm gonna say
Gandolfini.
about
James
that.
Gandolfini, and that's such a badass. Viggo Mortensen as well is really cool in that movie, and he's a young. I think there's a young Ryan Felipe in there if you're paying attention as well. Crimson Tide, that 10 p.m. Film Star 5-star, 10 p.m. on Thursday. A great ride by the great Tony Scott.
Welcome back to Offscreen. Now it is time to take a whistle-stop tour through everything in between. And what we mean by that is everything on DVD, Blu-ray and streaming. And we are kickstarting with what is available on Disney Plus as of today. And we've got a few offerings for you, in fact. Most of the offerings that we've got for you are from Disney Plus today. And that is starting with The Three Musketeers, the 2011 version. And I don't know, look, if you say Three Musketeers to me, I'm thinking Bryan Adams, All for One, you know,
All for One and One for All. Was it All for Love? One for All for Love, I believe is the song.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that with Chris O'Donnell and, God, what was it? Who were the rest
Chris
of the
O'Donnell
cast?
was D'Artagnan, and the Musketeers were Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt, and Cardinal Richelieu.
Tim Curry.
Was Tim Curry.
Yes.
Yeah, which was awesome.
So hard to beat that one. So the Three Musketeers, a 2011 version. I don't know if I even remember this.
Right, so this was the Paul W.S. Anderson version that somehow had to have Mila Jovovich kind of crowbarred in there. This starred Logan Lerman as D'Artagnan. It was in 3D, and I can't remember who the third one was, but I know two of the Musketeers were Luke Evans and Matthew McFadden again. So, this was, I think, and also this had Orlando Bloom as a villain. Would you believe it was bonkers? It was obviously intended as the start of a franchise, because I think it ends in such a way that does lead you to think there are genuinely going to be proper cinema. Like they leave storylines like they developed, like set up, like almost like a. You know, have you ever heard of the Avengers Initiative? Like kind of the Robin Hood Initiative, kind of that kind of level of creepy, anachronistic franchise building in there. But you know what? It's exactly as much fun as you'd imagine a Paul Anderson directed version of The Three Musketeers would be. You know, loads of dumb CGI. Ray Stevenson was the third Musketeer. I'm convinced Ray Stevenson. Sorry, how my mind works. The not so fondly remembered Punisher from 2008 in Warzone. Anyway, so Three Musketeers on Disney Plus today. As it is one I've not seen, but I've always wanted to. I figure you must have seen this one. This is Emily Blunt in The Young Victoria. Do you remember this one?
I actually haven't seen. I haven't seen this either. I was just thinking to myself, Jenna Coleman, but no, that was a series, and then
that was a series, yeah.
Yeah, that's what sprung to mind.
This is Emily Blunt as young Queen Victoria, opposite Rupert Friend as young Albert.
Yeah.
It was like an award season contender at the time, but it's just not gotten much like historical traction. It's not like that fondly remembered or often remembered now. But from the sounds of it, and just from the general vibe that I remember around the time, probably should be.
How dare you speak to me in that way before them? How dare you talk across me as if I were a child?
I did no such thing.
Oh, no? Well, you've sorted this. You've sorted that. You and Sir Robert. You and the Duke, and all without reference to me.
Victoria, I thought you'd be pleased.
I will tell you what you thought. You thought that I was a woman! To be petted and passed over and ignored.
Would it were so simple, then we might avoid more scandals of your making.
Have you lost your mind?
Do you wonder at it?
Did you notice that? Did you notice that one of your favourite things from Hail Caesar? Would it were so simple?
Would it were so simple?
Would it were so simple? The problem I've got with this, just by hearing it, and also I do remember like the trailers at the time, is that Emily Blunt is brilliant in anything she does. She's brilliant. But I almost think she's not the right casting for Queen Victoria. It doesn't feel like the right fit, just on the surface. So I'd be intrigued to watch this because, you know, I'd want to be proved wrong in it. But there's something just doesn't quite gel for me. And that might have been the reason why I was like, not going to watch it. Rupert Friend, however, interesting choice.
So, speaking of interesting choices, so these are all on Disney Plus from today. We're getting the double header. We talked recently about Speed, you know, the Stone Cold classic that is Speed. Well, Disney Plus, through their Fox acquisition and the Star tier, are adding Speed and Speed 2 from
Cruise
today
Control
as well. Cruise Control, yes. Now, don't get me wrong. On paper, you can see like all the ingredients for Speed 2 lining up. Like Willem Dafoe is a good choice for who you get as a villain to follow up Dennis Hopper. Like that works. Okay, it's just a shame that the villain's terrible, and that the movie's terrible. Everything about it is terrible, but. And even Sandra Bullock now has said in interviews, in press coverage for The Lost City, she has no idea why she did it. It's a terrible movie. It makes no sense, given that it's about a boat that goes relatively slowly. But
also to the point is that I don't think Jason Patrick had a role after this either. I think this is like a bit of a career ender for him, wasn't it?
I feel like it kind of finished off Jason Patrick, didn't he? I mean, he turns up in The Losers in 2009. I remember that, and he's a good villain in The Losers. I like The Losers more than most people do. I think
it's like keep him to the Lost Boys.
Yeah, but poor Jason Patrick. Alas, Speed and Speed 2 on Disney Plus from today. But the first one, starring Keanu, oh my God, it's legendary.
Do it.
Another one. This one's a bit more recent. This is coming out from today. I think this is actually being put on there under its full title of Le Mans 66. Under its formal title, of Ford v Ferrari or Le Mans 66. I'm not sure. But we know which one.
Great.
In the UK, it was Ford v Ferrari, but everywhere else it was Le Mans 66. This is Matt Damon and Christian Bale. You remember this one, don't you?
Yeah, I really like this, about the driver and his... Is it his, not mechanic, that's not a bit of a base way of describing it, but...
It's the engineer / designer and the driver who basically tried to come up with the Shelby Cobra to win Le Mans 66 so that Ford can stick it to Enzo Ferrari effectively.
Yes.
It is about the most dad bro movie imaginable, isn't it?
It is, but actually I really loved it. And Katrina Balfe is in it as well from Outlander. It's a really good kind of look back at it, at this event that happened and this real life, scenario. And if you like racing, I think it's shot really well. It's beautifully acted as well. And, it's a perfect Matt Damon movie. It's one of those Matt Damon movies you go, this is going to be a stable Matt Damon movie that you know what you're going to get and you know you're going to enjoy it.
We said dad bro, right?
Yeah, fine.
Matt Damon's kind of the acceptable face of dad bro, isn't he? But this is just a time-tested like James Mangold thing. This is James Mangold directing Logan and 3:10 to Yuma. James Mangold, and it's absolutely to his formula. It's a star-driven for the adults drama. It's got a great Christian Bale performance where he gets to unveil yet another of his accents. So let's have a listen to Ken's accent as Matt Damon, because his character's Ken. Christian Bale's accent as Ken, whilst Matt Damon tries to defend one of his temper tantrums. And just the fact that it's Christian Bale doing a temper tantrum in a movie using this voice is kind of brilliantly meta.
You can stick this bloody sticker where the sun
Hey, Bill.
shine.
Hey, Bill, what seems to be the problem,
Well,
Bill?
the problem is that Bill here is a
No, he doesn't mean that.
No, yes, he does.
No,
yes,
he
he
really
does.
doesn't
Yes,
mean
no,
that.
he
He's just
really
fooling
does
with you,
think
Bill.
that
He's just
Bill
fooling with-
is a.
I'm
just doing my job here.
Bill, in my experience, listen to me, something like this, there's always a middle ground. All right, now Ken's out of line.
And I'm just
all right?
doing my job.
I understand you are. You know how he gets on a race day. You know that, all right? But you're not going to DQ us over at Trump.
I remember watching this and coming out going, God, it was really slapstick from Christian Bale in the way he portrayed Ken. And then you actually look up,
isn't it? Yeah.
No, you look up the original, the real guy, and it's very much true, on point as well. So very true to form. Le Mans 66, you'll be forgiven if you watched it previously when it was called Ford versus Ferrari. They are the same movie, and that is available on Disney Plus. Now, to round off this week, I am excited to hear Van go off. I'm going to rein you in on this because we haven't got much time left in the show. Available on DVD and Blu-ray. Is Cow. And I did think of Van when I saw this being nominated at the BAFTAs, and I thought, if this wins, I'm never going to hear the end of it.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, this is Andrea Arnold's literal chronicle of cows. And oh my God, it's mostly I just can't believe it exists. I just wanted to acknowledge that it is being released on DVD so that Case Allen one-time host of Off-Screen. Obviously, I'm in a completely different country to Case Alan and you now, so. But he always has this thing about Matalan box sets, tenuously themed Matalan box sets, and I think if we had this one with copies of Pig, Dog with Channing Tatum, so Nicolas Cage's Pig, Channing Tatum's Dog, Noomi Rapace's Lamb. I think we could make a serious box set then if we then added.
You have a whole farm.
Cow. We've got the whole farm in there. It's a cow, which I think is a terrible, terrible waste of time. Is on DVD and Blu-ray from Monday. But you know what's out next week, Bex? Loads more fun next week. Because it was a good week for new releases this week. We had a great time with new releases this week. But next week, we've got the documentary Ennio on Ennio Morricone, you know, the famous film composer. Happening is out. Firebird is out. But it doesn't matter what else is out, because I think we know what's going to be the heavyweight next week. And it is, of course, being weighted down by the unbearable weight of massive talent. Nicolas Cage. The redemption of Nicolas Cage is here. We just mentioned Nicolas Cage in Pig. It was all part of a plan. That's what it was. The Recageissance, whatever you want to call it, it's happening. The Cagening, it's coming. The redemption of Nicolas Cage is finally here, and it is building to a head with the unbearable weight of massive talent, which we are finally going to get the opportunity to talk about next week. I have seen it. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see this one yet, Beck?
I've not, but I've heard a lot of good vibes coming from people who are like, Nicolas Cage, I've never laughed so much in my life.
Well, I can tell you that come next week, there will be conversations about Paddington 2 that you'll never have seen coming. So, the unbearable weight of massive talent and the redemption of Nicolas Cage to come, all along with more Freeview, streaming, and the full works next week off screen.
But for now, I've been Becks Perfect.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall return.